Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session where we're going to be talking about getting creative using the Okio camera. And so, if you do not have this document camera yet, it is a find that you will want to add into your classroom. It's portable and it's easy to set up in your any location. And so, right here is like an example of how small this document camera is. It folds out and then you have a nice little stand for it. This one has a whiteboard stand and it comes with a marker and a nice little rag to clean it. But it's also great to use with your students. And so during this series, we're going to be talking about how to use this camera, the Okio camera, with your students. So with today, we're going to be talking about this strategy that's called step by step. And with step by step, it takes a multi-step problem and it breaks it down into smaller steps for your students. So this way, it kind of helps them think about what they're learning, but it's not just having them consume information. With the AkioCam, your students are actually able to become creators themselves, and then they can make these step-by-step videos for your students. So the first thing that we're going to kind of talk about first is, let's look at an example. So on here in the slide deck, I'm going to throw this link into the chat so that way you're able to review all of this information. And you're able to kind of understand how this works. You're also able to have all of the templates from today too. So the first thing that's going to happen is the first step. So right here, we've got fractions. I went ahead and I used my document camera, the Okia cam, and I was able to film my math step by step for my students. Once I was able to solve this step by step, I then added timestamps into here so that way they knew exactly where step 1 was, where step 2 was, where step 3 was, and that is all in the YouTube description. So in the YouTube description, I went in, I added those exact times of when I talk about these steps. Your students can do this too. They can send you their final video, and then you can add these little steps in, and then you can create these step-by-step guides for other students to be able to watch and understand how to solve these different problems. So again, we've got watch step 1 in the video. Students are going to find that common denominator. So right here is the fraction. Their first step is how to find that common denominator. Well, if they watch step 1, it goes over how to find a common denominator. Then in step 2, students will then watch, and now they've got to do whatever they do to the bottom to change their denominator and do it to that top. And so again, step 2, it's in the video. Students can go straight to that step and they're able to use that step. What I like about this strategy is if students are struggling with step 2, they don't necessarily need to watch video part 1. They can just go straight to step 2, understand that step, and then move on. If your students are just struggling with step 3 or whatever they need to do, it's very differentiated to help meet your students' needs. So right here with step 3, we've got the students would solve the problem. So again, it takes students step by step using that OkioCam, how to solve it using paper and kind of explaining it. And then taking your video, because you are able to record with this document camera, and uploading it to YouTube. And then you're able to add those timestamps in for your video. Okay, so the next example that I kind of want to talk about now is like, let's start thinking about how we could use this in our classroom with other examples and with students. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull up my camera. So this is the Okio camera, and I'm able to, it's the big K once you download the software and once you have it. And then you can kind of see all my little papers right here. And the light is going to be just a little bit hard to see. So let's see if I can kind of zoom in to make it a little bit better. Okay, so I've got all my markers ready to go, and you can see my step by step by step by step paper. This one is that example I just went over with fractions. And so I'm talking about right here, watch step 1. The students can watch the video if they need that support, or that maybe your students are now ready to create their own video using the document camera. So I've got, again, step 1, step 2, step 3, and then step 4 here. So again, the students will do each of the step. Now that was an example already done. Again, me as a teacher example. Let's say the students are going to create one. So right here, we've got one on rounding. Okay, so rounding is a common math standard that a lot of students need to do in order to kind of show that they know this material. We want them to round to the nearest 1,000. Okay, so we've got this number 7,432. And we want our students to round to the nearest 1,000. So if I was a student, the first thing I would do is I would just say, this is my step 1. Okay. Step 1 is, here's the number. I would say what we're rounding to, introduce the problem. Step 2 is underline. So students are going to rewrite the problem. And once they rewrite it, I probably need to write a little bit darker so you guys can see it. Once I have that number written down, I then need to underline. So let's see, 7,400. Okay, so there we go. That looks a lot better. Now my students are going to underline. So they're going to say, well, the 7 is in the thousands place. So they are going to underline the 7. See how it's very step by step, how they are going over how they are solving this problem. They're talking out loud. They're showing their thinking out loud so that you can hear it as their teacher. Okay, and these make really good instructional videos, again, for that you can use the next year with your students going over how to solve these different problems. So the next step, after they've underlined, they're going to then change every number after that 7 to a 0. Okay, so there's 3 numbers, and they are going to make those, I shouldn't have underlined those. They're going to make those zeros. Okay. Once they do that, they're then going to round. So they're going to look next door at that 4, and they're going to say, is that above 5 or is that less than 5? And it's less than, so they're going to leave it 7,000. Okay, and sometimes students might use a number line to show their thinking. Okay, and then they would show it down here, and so they're going to round down. Okay, all your students have to do next is they just have to hit the red record button that is on their document camera. So for the Okiocam, they can click this red button, and then they can explain exactly what they just did step by step. So let's go ahead and let's act like we're a student, and let's do this all over again. Okay, so again, we're going to kind of record as we're a student. All right, so the first step when we are rounding is we first need to look at our number. So our number today is 7,432. We are going to be rounding to the nearest thousands place, so thousands. The second step is we're going to underline that number in the thousands place. So right here we got 7,432. This one is in the thousands place, the number 7. And students could also use a place value chart to show their reasoning as well, or whatever strategy you use with your students. Now that we've underlined, we are then going to change those other numbers to zeros. So I'm going to keep the 7 because that was my number in the thousands, and I'm going to create 3 zeros. Now that I've got 7,000, I am then going to start to round. So most students, we're going to use a line graph kind of to show this, and we've got 8,000 up here and 7,000 down here. Right here in the middle, we have 7,500, and ours falls about here, so we're going to round down. So my answer is 7,000. Okay, once students are done, they pause their recording, and then they can send their recording to you so that you could add those timestamps to show step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4 for your students to understand how to solve this step by step. So that could be just one way of using this document camera and these ideas to get your students to become those creators. And then again, I could use those videos every single year with my students, and they're the creators. They're the ones that broke all of these harder multi-step type of problems and different strategies into action. And so then I can again use those videos with my other students. Okay, let's look at another example. So right here, this example is a word problem. Okay, so I like to teach my students this type of strategy, the read, draw, write, and write a word sentence. So first they're going to read the problem. When my students read, they're going to box important words, they're going to circle numbers, they're going to underline the question. Once they do that, in step 2, can they draw something based on that word problem? Are my students able to draw something? Are they able to label something? What are they visualizing when they're reading that word problem? I want to see it as a image and on paper. And then the last 2 steps is they're going to write. So they're going to first write a number sentence and then they're going to write the word sentence. So again, I want to see my students thinking out loud while they're doing this. And so I like them to use this strategy where it has those 4 steps. And again, it works great with word problems or multi-step type problems. So right here, I've got my word problem. And again, my students are going to follow each of the different steps. I'll have them hit that record button right here. And now that it's recording, I can go ahead and begin. So the first thing that I'm going to have them do is circle or underline. So again, right here, they're boxing all those important words. They're circling important numbers. So we've got 2 and we've got 6. They are also boxing the question. Okay, so Jill sees that a carton of eggs shows an array with 2 rows of 6 eggs. What is the total number of eggs in the carton? Okay, so that is the first one. Also, I want them to underline the word total. Okay, so students are just talking about what they're underlining, what they're kind of doing in this step. In the second step, they're going to start to draw. So 2 rows. When I was teaching, my students always struggled with what was a row and what was like a column. So I like to remind them like columns are nice and big on buildings where rows, go side to side. And so there's 2 rows. So there's my rows. And in each row, there's 6 eggs. Okay. Now that I've got my 2 rows by my 6 eggs, my students could have drawn circles. They could have drawn little eggs. They could have done whatever they needed to do to explain this concept. But all they had to do was those 2 rows and 6 eggs. Now that they've got that, they can say that total means that we might multiply. And so down on step 3, they're going to write their word sentence. So 6 times 2 equals 12 eggs. And then they're going to write the word sentence. So they're going to say, there are 12 eggs in the carton. And again, I can see my students thinking out loud as they're solving all these steps during their word problem. Why? Because I've had them record using that document camera. So they can, again, they're going to pause that recording. It saves right in here. And then I'm able to use that recording once I'm all done. So there we go. There's my recordings. I can then upload these to YouTube, create a nice video with all of my students' work, and I'm able to kind of understand what they're doing and they're thinking out loud. And so here's one with a word problem. We talked about one with rounding. You could do all kinds of these different type of problems using this document camera, the Okiolabs, and then you can have your students really show their thinking out loud. So I can't wait to see how you guys are thinking about using this in your classroom. And that final step again is to publish. So once your students have finished their video, right here's that video. You can save this video um, to YouTube if you want. So I like to go to youtube.com. I like to add that video. And then once I've got my video all ready to go, I can then add it to my YouTube channel, which can make it really, really nice when I'm trying to work on different things with my students. Or again, maybe I want them to be the ones to show me what do they know? How can they word what they kind of know and all that kind of stuff. So on here, I click this little folder. This folder opens up and then I can drag this over to YouTube and my video will upload to my channel. And then in the YouTube description, I am able to add my timestamps. I can add whatever I need to add. I could add a thumbnail. I can add it to a playlist to help me organize my videos. I can also grab that YouTube link so that way I have it ready to go when I need to use it with other students. So just a great way to kind of have a resource of all your student created videos, or maybe you're thinking about creating some of these step-by-step videos for your own students. And this again can be a great way to do that. So once you have that video, you'll click that folder and then you can add that to YouTube. And then your students are able to watch all of the content and they're able to learn from one another. So make sure that you go over to Amazon and you are able to purchase one of these document cameras for your classroom. Again, they're pretty reasonable in price. And again, you can get them on Amazon for less than $100. And you can just kind of see here, like you're able to move things around. Your students are able to do things. And we're going to be talking about more in upcoming videos about how you can use this with your students in the classroom so that they are becoming the creators and that you're kind of able to support them in what they're doing. So I have this one right here, the Okiocam T Plus. So this is the one that I really enjoy using. So if you are interested, that is the one that I currently use for this project. So go over there, go ahead and grab your camera, and then you can set it up, have a station in your classroom for your students. So that way they're able to use the Okiocam and they're able to practice all of these different things. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to talking more about how to use this document camera in your classroom.